In today's lab, I'm going to show you how to set up IPSEC VPN site to site. First, let's look at topology I've shown you in our lecture called Topology we're using for our series. So over here we have our network where we have attacker smart console where we manage our firewall. This is our internal network right over here, and on top I'm going to deploy a second firewall that will be managed by the same management server, and we're going to manage it through our smart console right from here. If you are deploying VPN and it is being managed by a different management server, even though it's Checkpoint, it is going to be a bit different, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And of course, if you are trying to deploy your VPN between Checkpoint that you manage with any other vendor, the procedure will still be a bit different, but the idea is the same. Settings on configuration on both sites have to match, especially phase number 1 and phase number 2. We're going to build up a VPN, and I want to build up a VPN with a specific service, so at least we have a purpose to build up VPN. So I want to call it VPN for FTP. You can use any other service for whatever reason you want, but in that series, let's just use it for FTP. I've got an FTP client over here installed. It's FileZilla, and on the other side, I have FTP server that we will be trying to connect, and then we're going to see in the logs if the traffic is actually going there or not. All right, without any further ado, let's begin. So first of all, you need to create a community object to build up a VPN. You go for New, click More, go for VPN Community. You can choose Star Community if you want to have a specific routing between your central VPN and satellite ones, or meshed one. They will be able to build up a tunnel between each other. So we're going to call it, let's do it VPN for FTP. We have a purpose, right? So we don't do anything without a purpose. It would be pointless. I've already added a second device here to my smart console, and we established SIG connection. So we're going to add it from here. You just click +sign any gateway you want to include inside your VPN community. You do it here, they will be able to build up VPN with each other. Then you go for encrypted traffic. So that setting here, what it means, if I check that, accept all encrypted traffic, you will not have a necessity to create a firewall policy to accept the traffic. If you check that, it will create implied automatic rules to accept all your encrypted traffic. If we uncheck that, we will have to manually define our rule base in the firewall. If you check that, it's pretty easy. You don't have to do anything. So you can leave it like that if you want, like check that. But since we are, you're getting my knowledge, I'm gonna uncheck that and show you a more complicated way, but the more granular control way. Then you go for encryption. So over here, what we can pay attention to. So we have phase number 1 and we have phase number 2. These settings have to match, but since these firewalls, these two gateways are being managed by the same management server, and this is the only tab we have for configuration, that kind of stuff, they will match. That's 100% because this is the only tab we have. If you have a different management server that manages a different device, that settings that you set up over here, they have to match on the other side. They have to be the same, right? Even like aggressive mode, perfect forward secrecy, all that settings, they have to be the same. This is really important, and that concept seems really easy, but over and over, I fix cases like that all the time. Maybe like even couple cases a day, VPN cases, just because people cannot, they don't understand that have to match. Once you watch my lecture to see how the tunnel is being built, So you're gonna understand, maybe a bit more about that. Then you go for tunnel management. So we're gonna leave permanent tunnels for now. Don't check that. So what it is, a certain amount, whenever a certain amount of seconds passes, or a tunnel reach a certain amount of kilobyte, it will reset it. If you don't really want that, you have to enable set permanent tunnel. It's gonna send out keep alive packet, and the tunnel will not be reset and reestablished. As for VPN tunnel sharing, the most recommended way to do that is to use VPN tunnel per subnet pair. It applies to a second phase when we set up subnetting. Whenever a subnet tries to build up a tunnel, it is going to build it based upon its subnet. So we're going to build a tunnel, let's say a host from address 172.16.10.2 is trying to build a tunnel to something else. When the tunnel is opened for the second phase, it is going to open for the whole subnet. The whole subnet will go through the tunnel. And with that being said, the keys, encryption keys that encrypt the traffic and decrypt the traffic will be open for the whole subnet. If you used for each pair of hosts, a different set of keys for encryption and decryption will be used for each tunnel that is for each host that is trying to open up a connection. That kind of increases an overhead. That thing, it will open up a tunnel for your whole gateway. Everything that is behind your gateway, it will build up a tunnel and it will be used to encrypt and decrypt the traffic. I'm going to leave that for now. And honestly, I've never seen anyone use anything else but that in years. Excluded services. If you want to exclude anything from your services, let's say you don't really want, I don't know, whatever this is, you don't really want DHCP or whatever to go through your tunnel, you can exclude that and it will be denied on firewall policy. It is really useful, especially if you want to accept all the traffic, you don't really want to bother with the firewall rules, you just check that. Okay, and then you go for exclude services, and then you exclude specific services. But we're not going to do that. We're going to do it more complicated way, so we're going to leave that blank for now. As for shared secret, it is an alternative to certificate to build up your pre-shared keys for your phase number 1. It is less secure, but it can be used to especially if you don't want to exchange your cert, you can use that with third-party vendors or a second checkpoint firewall that is being managed by a different server. You just click here, and then you have your peer name that is interoperable device. It's not managed by that firewall, and then you put up a secret here. Wire mode, it is really useful, especially if you trust these networks and you don't really want them to be inspected by checkpoint stateful inspection. You don't really want to flood your firewall stateful inspection table with that stuff, especially if you trust your networks 100%. As I've told you, tunnels are not permanent. They have a limit. So checkpoint usually does that thing by seconds. Some vendors do it by kilobytes. When a tunnel reaches a certain amount of time, it resets the tunnel. Checkpoint does it by seconds, and for the first phase, the default value is that number in minutes, and for the second phase, the default value is that value in seconds. As for NATing, you can enable NAT inside your VPN community, or you can disable NAT inside your VPN community. So when you check that, honestly, it seems like it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal to check it or uncheck that value. over here. So I'm gonna, honestly, that thing goes to CCSM series. If you type in FWCTL chain, how the traffic is flowing between different daemons inside the checkpoint device, checkpoint has to know whether to NAT the traffic and then put it to TCP IP stack and then put it in VPN stack to decrypt, encrypt, and stuff like that. So if you're enabling VPN inside your VPN community, so what is going to happen? Traffic will be encrypted, then it will be NATed. But you have to understand that that NATed traffic you are translating might be a bit different from what the other side is expecting. Remember, I told you configuration have to match, even subnets. If it's not matched, the traffic will be dropped. You will not be able to establish a tunnel because the other side is expecting a value that you define. It's expecting the proper subnet. If you're not that, it will be different. But in certain scenarios, I've seen customers like that. They need that, especially usually the way it works, you NAT a traffic on your router behind your firewall, and you put that subnet inside your encryption domain. If you do it here, it will be a bit more complicated, but it is possible. We're gonna check that because I want to disable that thing. Just I don't want to see it here. Then you click OK. Then you have to go to your device. You go for gateways and servers. You click your gateway. And we have to define encryption domain. We have to define a subnet that will be put through the tunnel and go to another encryption domain. You do it from here. You click network management and go for VPN domain. That configuration here. You then go for manually defined and you basically define a subnet. So I'm going to define 172.16.10.0. So I'm going to view that. That is the subnet I'm going to be putting behind my encryption domain from my site, from attacker/smart console side. And as for the second side, I've added another gateway as I've told you, and we're going to do the same thing here. You can see I have IPSEC VPN enabled, then go for network management, VPN domain, and I have 10.10.10.20.0 network. View details. There you go. You can define way more subnets if you want to. If you want to do that, you have to create new group, simple group, and put all these networks inside that group. And then you're going to click OK. All right. So you're going to click yes. Configuration that I want you to pay attention to when you're doing the that kind of stuff. You go for the tab that is called IPSEC VPN. So over here, not too much difference. The only thing you can do, you can choose a certificate, upload your own one, or use the default one that Checkpoint Management Server generated, and it's being its own security authority. The thing I want you to understand is what Checkpoint is going to be using for its peer IP, the external IP address that devices use to establish a face number one. You can use the main address. If it says the main address, it's going to be using that address. This is the main address. You can choose your own one, choose from the topology table that you have, or statically NAT an IP. You can play around with that. I usually use the main one. You know, it just works for me. The rest is a bit more complicated. I'm going to leave it for now. Then you just click OK. Remember, I've told you that we're going to make it a bit more complex. So we didn't check accept all the traffic. We're going to do it manually from here. So the way you do that, you create a rule. Just let's do a couple rules. We're going to accept the traffic. The last rule will be our cleanup rule, regular one. Let's just log it. Let's log everything. And so as for the source, you want to choose a subnet that we define under our encryption domain. It's that one, and the subnet that I have is called like that. We're gonna drag and drop it. Yeah, honestly, with checkpoint environment, it's not too complicated. Okay, we're actually gonna delete that rule. And for the purposes of FTP, actually there is a tab here that is missing. If the tab VPN is missing, you have to right click on this gray tab here and check it. So for VPN, choose your community, specific VPN community, and we're gonna go for a VPN for FTP. And now we're gonna make a granular control. I want to accept FTP. So let's go for FTP. I want to check everything that's related to FTP. And actually another thing that you want to use for FTP is TCP higher ports, because FTP is using randomly generated port to open up a connection. At least I have to find that higher ports. As far as I remember, FTP is using something far above 40,000, but this is used like over 1023. We're going to be using that. It is going to work. At least it's more granular than accepting everything. And we're going to install policy on everything. So we're going to include our 2 gateways that we have. So, all right, now we have to install the policy. It will be really fast for you. And let's see how our VPN works. The policy has been installed. As I've told you, we have our FileZilla FTP client on our attacker smart console side, and somewhere else, on that topology, we have our FTP server. Okay, let's try to connect using that password, attacker password VPN123, quick connect. Okay, let's do that. A new tab. Okay, the connection is successful, and let's go for the logs. Then you go for logs and monitor, filter by blade VPN, and filter by service FTP. So this is the rule we have, the one I've set up. So here, as you can see, we have encrypt connection for our gateway, and we have protocol FTP. Everything is working. This is how you set up VPN for 2 devices managed by the same security management server.